Hello. A few words about paratext, which is all the text involved in a uh, training material textbook. That is not the body text. I will explain a little further. So we divide the paratexts into paratext and epitext. And the paratext, that is everything involved beyond the body text inside the document itself. It might be an ingress, the intermediate titles, it might be a picture with a caption, a video. Sometimes those are constituent parts of the document itself, but they might also be sort of flowing a bit on the side with counterpoints or provocative questions or alternative perspectives or things to discuss. So they are partly inside the textual flow or the flow of ideas, or they might be sort of creating more depth to it. That's paratext. Epitext, on the other hand, is the kind of things that surrounds the main body of text. It might be a comment on Twitter or Facebook. It might be a newspaper article, and so on and so forth. And it's considered like a kind of threshold for starting to read the text, and it impacts how the text is received, reception, and understood. Now, in the kind of text we're working with, we have basically XML or HTML structures as seen here. The document itself, you have a HTML tag that surrounds the whole document, the header with a title, which is not the document title, by the way. That is the title read by the system itself. So you might expand the concept of paratext to include texts that are read not by humans, but by the machines and used for various purposes. And then we have the body with the headers 1 to 6 and so on and so forth. All this is part of both structuring the document and also in some cases impacting how it is read and understood. And obviously also how it is sort of understood or handled by computers. Now, let's move to OpenEdX. We have something called the About page, which is the thing you see before you enter the course that can contain a lot of things. What kind of knowledge is required for you to take this course? What is it about? What kind of software do you need? And so on and so forth. There's a particular place here within the studio editor to write that kind of text. And even if you don't put so much work on that initially, it's a good idea to think that, yeah, some parts of the thing I want to convey is not written inside the body text, for instance, an introduction. Maybe that should be outside, or part of the introduction should be outside, not part of the content proper, but as a sort of threshold text that you look at the first time and then you're finished with it. There's also a menu entry in Studio called Content, where you have the outline. Now, and several others, we'll look briefly at those. The content, well, when you write the document and you structure it, the elements of the structure will result also in a table of contents that is automatically generated. So it's a good idea to think a little about how you formulate the entries here, because they are read both in context with the body text proper, but also out of context and in the context overall of the overall table of contents, which many uses to get a sort of brief overview of what the document is about. And it's useful for students to navigate and see what is this learning process, what is expected of me. Many students say that particularly now, that they are unsure what is expected of them and have easy access to the table of contents and the kind of keywords that convey might alleviate that problem. There's something called updates, and that is the kind of text that can be refreshed quite often. In some cases, we use this to have a first exposure to students when they start reading, and then they don't see it anymore. But it's also possible to update that for various purposes, to convey things that come up during a course or something, or for other reasons, as updates. Then we have the singular pages. In this case, for instance, a reading list, which is not part of the text proper. You add a single page, and here in this case, we have used some HTML5 mechanisms to have that sort of a folded structure that can expand and close, where you can have all the reference literature, but in one single HTML page. And we have also expanding on that, but that's called a textbook, and that is basically PDF files. So you can take an entire manual, in this case, overview of creating an online course in OpenEdX, or it might be a full textbook in its own right, that is sort of included with the digital solution on OpenEdX. So the system has a plethora of ways to expand beyond the body text itself. Turning to the epitext, we think it's quite important when you develop online course material to convey, to inform about what you have there in social media, like in Twitter or in Facebook or in newspapers, in this case, a Norwegian university newspaper, maybe as a comment on an article and so on and so forth. So there's a whole cottage industry or additional work on providing pointers into the course material itself that lies beyond the text, but is part of constituting the overall universe that this title deals with. Thank you for your attention.